Good afternoon. Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Monday, March the 5th. Well, the big news today came this morning at the governor's office. Asa Hutchinson, joined by Seema Verma, who's the head of the Medicaid and Medicare Center for the federal government, announced that the federal government has approved the state's proposal to impose a work requirement, or at least a volunteer work requirement, for people who are on Medicaid. This is viewed as a political win for governor, who hopes to get continued approval of the Arkansas Works Medicaid expansion program from the legislature. It's popular to say that poor people should work in return for benefits. What we don't really know is how many people will actually be made to work by this. Some 39,000 people will get letters, but many will be exempt because either they work, or they're sick, or they're too old, or they're single parents, or some other qualifications. The state's going to have to spend a lot of money, too, to put this system in place. Whether we save money on it or not, we don't really know. The truly big news today was that the federal government continues to resist approving a waiver that the governor wants that would lower the income requirement for qualifying for Medicaid assistance from 138% of the poverty level to 100% of the poverty level. And 100% of the poverty level is something like $12,000 a year, sub-minimum wage. Well, the government doesn't want to extend this to Arkansas for a variety of reasons. One thing, it may not be legal. Number two, there are other states, if the requirement were so low, they might join in and cost the government more money. In any event, that one's still off in the offing. The Joint Budget Committee of the legislature today will likely approve the DHS budget with the continuation of Arkansas Works. Whether that means there's enough votes within the Senate and the House, the Senate particularly, to pass the budget with the required 75% of the vote remains to be seen. But this is a win for governor so far, and he's getting praise from around the country from conservatives who think you have to punish poor people a little bit before you give them any help, if you give them anything at all. News today on the medical marijuana front, a company that had filed 2 of the 6 high-scoring applications for permits to grow medical marijuana in the state has decided which county it's going to have its operation in. It can only have one of its applications go forward. It will be in Jefferson County. That's Natural States Wellness, the group that includes Dustin McDaniel among its backers. It joins another outfit with a similar name, Natural State Cultivation, I think it's called, which is also going to be in Jefferson County. The natural state that chose Jefferson County today could have gone to Jackson County as well. We understand, by the way, and you'll want to stay tuned, that there's been some adjustment in the scoring on the medical marijuana cultivation permits. Whether this is going to cause any blowback or not, I don't know, but the scores originally posted were no longer on the website, and apparently there's some changes in the offing. In Little Rock, Police Chief Kenton Buckner issued a statement today that said he had withdrawn his application to be considered police chief in Charleston, South Carolina. He was one of the finalists. He said he decided he still had work to do in Little Rock. That probably means he was not going to be chosen for the Charleston job, but there's been no announcement from that end. He's going to stay in Little Rock and try and make things better. Still a few things he hadn't gotten done yet that he hopes to do. Stacie Hurst, director of the Department of Arkansas Heritage, who's been under fire for forcing out the popular head of the state archives and for a number of other personnel changes, issued a long letter to her staff today disputing some criticism of her, particularly a very critical column that was in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette by Tom Dillard, a respected retired historian and former director of that same department. She says it's all a bunch of nonsense, that things have never been better there and people have never been happier. And if you can't believe her, well, maybe you might have found another job if you're working for Stacie Hurst. Interesting development at an Arkansas State University Board of Trustees meeting last week. They heard from a consultant who said their admissions and scholarship process favored better off families. That is, higher scoring students applied first, got the money first, and the result is poor students didn't do so well, and it makes it harder for them to stay in school. Guess what? The rich get richer. This is the way it's always been in Arkansas. We favor rich people in our Arkansas lottery scholarships. The only way we're going to ever improve our college retention and graduation rate among all people is to do a little bit better in helping out the poor people. The people that are going to college anyway, that already afforded college anyway, perhaps need a little bit less assistance. And right now, we give them an extra boost up rather than having an equal treatment. Also Friday, it's worth noting that a federal judge in Fayetteville refused to dismiss charges against former Republican Senator Jon Woods and other co-defendants in the public corruption case in which they're accused of taking kickbacks from state money that went particularly to a little Christian college up there known as Ecclesia College. They'd wanted the charges dismissed because of mishandling of some evidence by an FBI agent. The judge said the agent indeed had mishandled evidence and he's under investigation, may even be charged, but it didn't justify dismissing the charges against these people on a public corruption count, and I think he's right about that. And finally, over the weekend, we learned that a group of older Vietnam veterans want to hold a protest at UA Little Rock later this month when there's a program to pay tribute to people who served in the military during the Vietnam War. They resent the idea that anybody who served then is going to be commemorated. They think only the people who served in country should be remembered, and they want to have a protest. But they're unhappy that there's a free speech zone at UA Little Rock that's far removed from where the event's going to be held. They think that's not a full reverence for their First Amendment ability to speak out. I'm kind of sympathetic about these First Amendment zones. However, one of the leaders of this organizer said he's not ready to get arrested yet. That's hardly in the spirit of Vietnam. I think some protests in which people were willing to be arrested sometimes brought about changes in public policy. Maybe the old codgers like me, when I say codger, I'm speaking of my own age as well, ought to honor the memory of the time as well as the people who served then, who certainly served in an unpopular war and paid a great price for it. I'm resisting. You do too. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.